All right, it says we're recording and we are back from the dead. This is the startup again of our podcast. And Hunter, I think we have started this podcast and ended this podcast multiple times now. Do you think we're going to stick with it this time?
You will see. That's the joy of having a full-time job for both of us, doing this for fun on the side. But it's always more fun during hunting season. I think we're going to stay consistent giving these updates. We're trying to make it a little bit easier on ourselves. So I'm hoping this is the go round. But
Yeah,
some support would probably make it worth it.
right. And we're kind of just, and this is the start of the new podcast that we're going to be doing. And I agree. I think it's going to be a lot easier when there's more content to talk about. We started the podcast back up when the season was done and it was the dead time. So I'm not sure, what are we going to call it, Hunter? The plan is to make podcasts after every hunt. And our goal with this is to be able to keep some sort of a journal. And it's a journal is something that I think has been lost within hunting, just because I don't journal. I've never journaled, but you hear of some old timers, they've written down, what did they see, where they saw it, and what did they learn from it. And for me, over the years, it's always just kind of been, I'm going to hunt here for these reasons. I see these things. And then if I remember it next year, I can go back and maybe capitalize on it or learn something from it. So,
But you get a couple of years down the line and you have no idea what was going on.
exactly.
Even myself, like you're always saying how I can remember bucks. I'm pretty good at, I don't know if it's just because I obsess over them or what, but I'm pretty good at remembering bucks from even a couple of years back, and then I'll recognize them down the line or stuff like that. But even I will mark stuff, especially if it's on public or something, like on Onyx maps, and I'll drop a pin, maybe forget to label it or something, and then I'll be e-scouting because I like to try new places all the time. I'll be e-scouting a couple years later and I see these pins and I'm like, man, that place looks good. But I'm like, I kind of think that place sucked. I don't
right.
remember anymore.
And that's where, if we were better at, marking each pin, now you can mark each pin with notes on Onyx, which is a really cool
Yeah.
feature.
I
But
get bad with that in the field though. So this will help keeping this. So what it's going to be is a daily hunt log, or whenever we go hunting, our plan is to almost just record it on the way home from hunting. That way, like we said, we're busy. So this is going to allow us to do this more frequently. We're going to try to make it easier on ourselves, but I know I love following along on stuff like this. I've heard it done before for like week-long stretches on, other podcasts. I like hunting podcasts. I listen to them whenever I work or work out sometimes. But I've heard of people doing this on out-of-state hunts, especially. We're going to try to do this at the very least whenever we get good action, but going to try to be pretty consistent with it and do it every hunt. So I don't remember what we were thinking of calling it.
I thought of like a hunt cast. I thought of multiple things. You just said hunting blog or audio blog.
Daily hunting log.
Yeah, daily hunting log. There we go. There's the name. But I think it's, so like Hunter said, we're going to try to make it as easy as we can on ourselves, because Hunter and I have kind of fallen into this rut of, like, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but hunting is our hobby and our passion. We work just like everybody else who listens to this podcast and watches our videos. And we've had a hard time lately making videos on our channel, Brunk Outdoors, because we just don't have time. Like, we are your average Joe guys. So I think this is going to be cool for people to listen in to, people who, there's a lot of, like, every podcast out there, it seems every guy is doing that as their job, or they don't seem to have a job, right? So it's like your average Joe guys, we've got limited vacation. It's not going to be an everyday thing because we can't hunt really every day, right? We've got obligations that we've got to get done, but we've saved up vacation. Hunter has 4 days. Didn't you say you have 4 days of vacation?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Um, so I think it's going to be cool to be able to see, okay, why did Hunter take off November 2nd, right? And you can say, I'm taking off this day and here's the reasons why. Maybe somebody else is going to go, well, I'm in Iowa too. Why don't I do the same thing? So I think it's going to be a cool way to track, because if you were to listen in on last year and what we learned, um, dissecting properties, with your buck, for example, I saw bucks go in and out of that spot 2 days in a row, one evening and one morning, and that next afternoon you went in there and shot that buck, right? And then the same thing goes with the split G2 buck that I stuck. I gradually hunted my way in, learned until I realized that the buck was hanging out by that creek. So then I pushed in the next morning, got in the creek and stuck the buck, right? So I think there's a lot of good things that you can learn from it and that people can take away. So I think that's the main reason for it. And to make it easier on ourselves, we're going to do it kind of in the truck. So you'll have to, hopefully the audio sounds good, but it's going to be what it's going to be. It's going to be raw. It's going to be raw. It's going to be rugged, and we might die in the making of it, Hunter.
GRITTY.
Gritty, baby. But yeah,
Probably get
so
sued now.
yeah, might as well. They can have the podcast for $5. But anyway, so I guess we'll just start off. It is October 7th. It's Thursday. And Hunter and I, we hunted last weekend. So that was the 2nd and 3rd of October opening weekend here in Iowa. So a little bit of a recap. So this year's been extremely dry for the upper 2/3 part of the state. Southern Iowa's had good moisture for the most part. But
Until recent.
yeah, until recent. But like back home, it is just dry as all get out. We're actually getting some rain right now, which is good. We need it bad, but it's been really hot, and it's been a really hot start to October. And looking at the forecast going in the season, we thought there was going to be a little bit of a cold spell this week, and it turned into nothing. So this weekend we still went out hunting. And I guess you can recap your hunt, or like quick recap of what you saw. I know yours was slower.
Yeah, so Deercast was telling me I should just stay in, drink milk and cookies. This time I think I should have listened to it. But yeah, no, this cold front ended up being basically just getting it back down, not even to average temperatures. It was a little bit of a front from what we were having, but we didn't even get down to average temperatures, so it was pretty slow. I I make fun of Deercast, but I wasn't going to cash in on any of our best spots in
Right.
early October when we had bad weather like that. So my plan was to either go to public and scout and hunt, because there's so much public. I don't worry about burning spots out too much. I like to make good sits, and I just have a lot of areas to hunt. So I like to do that whenever I don't want to waste or put pressure on any of our private properties that we have. So I was either going to do that or hunt low impact spots on the farm or any of the leases. Well, down there it's just one lease, but I ultimately decided to stay out of public. Just couldn't convince myself to do the suicide missions in the early season and battle the jungle that is public land this time of year. And the other thing was we only had 2 morning hunts and 1 evening hunt, and we wanted to take the evening hunt a little bit more seriously, sit somewhere good, at least an observation sit or something like that. So I didn't want to just go diving in on public and have to scout my way in the dark. So ultimately, both mornings I sat, I'd say pretty low odds stands. Or actually, the first morning I hunted off the ground right behind this house on our private property that we own, that Dad owns. spot, we don't even have a tree stand. It was decent the first year we had the farm. We were doing this quite a bit, just pecking around, seeing what was going on, but really completely out of the way from any food to bed transitions that you want to hunt in the morning. Really low impact spot, and I was just going in there to get the kinks out for the first day, and really just wanted to be out there, to be honest. So did that. Saw a couple does on the way out. Scouted a switchgrass field that's right along the road. We planted it 2 winters ago. Frost seeded it, and I was curious if anything was going to bed on there because it's within 100 yards of the road the whole way. The second year it really took off, and so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna walk this edge. I didn't think there's going to be anything big in there, so I wasn't worried about too much. And lo and behold, I actually spooked a young basket rack 8. So it was cool to see a buck actually using that habitat improvement already, only the second year in. I thought that was really interesting, and I wasn't too worried about spooking him, especially this time of year, and he's young. So that wrapped up my morning hunt. In the afternoon, you'll hear that Trevor had pretty good action in the morning on the lease. That's where he went. So he decided to go back to that stand, and I wanted to basically cover the other side of the lease. There ended up being cattle still on the lease, which is another curveball that maybe we'll go into. But I sat a stand literally right above the clump of trees where I was sitting on the ground, where I killed my biggest buck ever. I killed that last year, October 25th, on an
And we
evening hunt.
hung that stand.
Yeah, that one's on video. We pimped out that lease this year. We got that place set up to a T. I was sitting on that stand. It was bringing back memories of all the things we learned and all the deer movement that we observed and all the good memories. Really good hunting on that place last year. Unfortunately, it's going to be a bit different this year. The farmer's not willing to move the cattle completely out of that area this year. So we, unfortunately, about half of the good area on that lease is going to have cattle in it, and
What
it's
you
definitely
mean?
going to have an effect.
You mean to tell me that even on private ground that you're not throwing curveballs every year like public land? Hashtag
Yeah,
public land's harder. Sarcasm.
yeah, for sure. I mean, between all the work you put into private land trying to keep food on the property, because if you don't and you're in a good neighborhood, they're just going to be on their neighbors. And then EHD seems to come through our area every single year.
Yeah, they're not getting on side
And
tangents.
yeah, but anyway, ended up going to that stand, wanted to cover the other side of the lease, and I didn't see a dang thing. I bumped those cattle going in. It sounded like a stampede. I don't know how any cattle ranchers do it. I was sitting in that stand about ready to shoot those stupid things, but they ran all the way to the back where all the deer come out. And then when I got in there mooing and causing all kinds of commotion, despite my best efforts to get around them, I pushed them clear back to where all the deer come out. And then when I got there, they ran all the way back. So it literally alerted every deer within 2 square miles, I'm pretty sure. And I thought, okay, what the heck? I've already done my damage. And the cows kind of moved away after I got back in there. So I was like, I'll just see if something comes out. Because I've hunted around cattle pasture before where there are actually cows in them. And I did see deer kind of intermingled within the cows. That area was a little bit different. It was some permission, and they didn't really have a choice. It was ag country, and the only block of timber within several miles had cattle in it. So that's kind of what they had to deal with. But in this case, they had a lot of choices, especially this year. There's a big mass crop. So I think they were just staying in the timber eating acorns. They didn't want to come out in the pasture, at least before dark. The stupid cows are so loud. But that wrapped up my evening hunt. And the next morning, what did I do? Oh, yeah. I went to the farm the next morning in a pretty easy to get to spot. That one was a little bit higher odds sit, although I didn't have a specific target buck. Just wanted to see if anything was using this hardwood timber ridge in the morning, and almost shot a coyote. Saw a couple does, had a fawn walk right by me on my walk in. I could have reached out and touched her, so that was cool. Other than that, no bucks to speak of this weekend, and I had a pretty slow weekend.
Yeah. And so then I guess we'll talk about mine. I didn't go out Sunday morning. Because I pulled the lazy Larry there. I don't know why I said lazy Larry, but it just sounded like it rhymed. Anyway, so Saturday morning, I actually went to the same stand for the morning and evening hunt. I'm not sure how I managed to do that, but I think the morning hunt was decided upon because I knew how good this side of this private property could be early season. So I went in there and it was a decent wind. This is a particular spot that, um, even if this is something to know for both of us, I've hunted this spot now for 2 years. And even when the winds are calling for, let's say, a west, or it's calling for a northwest or a southwest, you can bet that it's down kind of in the bottom of the ravine. You can bet that the wind is always just kind of following that contour, unless, you're getting a good, non-overcast day, like a sunny day, because the wind just likes to swirl down there. And since it was sunny days, I was able to get away with it a lot more, I think, because the sun was hitting the ground and it was heating it up, and the thermals were helping just kind of pull it up, and it was a warm, high pressure day. And so I was fine there. So that's why I went in there. And I knew there's some good action on the edge of this pasture. And so the morning hunt, I actually spooked deer going in, which is not good to see, because most of the deer that I think I'm going to see that on a morning hunt is deer that I would spook, just how it works on access getting in here. And so I was kind of bummed, but got set up in the stand, and it was another stand that we pimped out for the season, from what we learned from last year. And ended up having a group of, I think, 2 or 3 does. I think doe and 2 fawns, actually doe fawns, come through, and right behind her was like 2 or 3 bucks. And the main reason why I hunted this first weekend was to get a lot of the kinks out. You got a lot of rust on you, like getting everything packed, getting everything ready. You just feel like you've never hunted before. So you got to knock all that off and get kind of back into the swing of things. And the biggest swing of things for me is like field judging deer again. And that was like put to the test right out of the bat. And it was a deer that was like, oh, wow, that's a nice deer coming in, right? And I started looking him up, sizing him up. I'm like, he's not a shooter, right? But I was like, how big actually is he? And after I like field judged him, I figured he's like, what, 140 or so. I think I was like 145. But looking back at the footage, it was a much smaller deer than I expect. I mean, maybe not much smaller. He's probably 130s, 140s. Anyway, went there, saw a good deer. They were eating on the pasture grass and like the clovers. But right under our stand is an acorn tree just in the middle of the pasture. And all the deer were just sitting there eating on acorns for like 5 to 10 minutes, sparring, eating acorns, sparring, eating acorns. So I watched those deer, and they eventually worked their way off, and I didn't see anything else. So in the middle of the day, we actually went and messed with trail camera batteries. Hunter didn't mention that, but got trail cameras moved to more fall type locations like scrapes and a little bit more travel corridors. That way we can monitor what's actually going on. And when we want to make our move on some of these bucks.
Yeah, that was
And
the main reason for going down there as well. We wanted to finish up the cameras on the farm, so we had intel going into season. We forgot to mention that.
right. And so for the afternoon, we decided, since we were on the farm, that we wanted to stay off, keep the pressure as low as possible. And so I ended up going back to that same stand, and I knew it was going to be a good hunt, but I didn't realize how good of a hunt it was going to be. Saw quite a bit of deer. And then I had a really nice buck jump the fence, the cattle separation fence, and then jumped in the pasture on my side. And he was at like 20 yards instantly. He's a real solid buck. He's at least 150, and he's just a really, really good solid buck. And it's a buck that I'm pretty sure we know who he is. And I'm pretty sure he's a 4-year-old, but I gave him a good look for like 5 to 10 minutes at 20 yards and 18 and 15 yards eating on acorns. And it was perfect. I drew back on him, practiced drawing, practiced trying to get the camera on him, practiced the new head cam. Head cam footage is going to be sweet this year. And that's an inside joke with Hunter and I, because I'm all about this head cam this year.
Yeah,
And
his fiance can't stop making fun of him for his head cam
right.
addiction.
Well, I think they're cool, but hey, whatever. And
Yeah, well, it's different when she comes home and you got a camcorder strapped to the side of your head.
yeah, note to
It's not.
everybody's self. I bought the Solvid head cam system, and I think it's a cool system. But the minute you strap on your handy camera onto the side of your head, you just look like a doofus. Like there's no way to help but look like a doofus. And so I walked out when she got home one day from work, and I'm like, "What do you think of this?" And she never has stopped making fun of me since. But now I've upgraded to a GoPro. So we've got GoPros. So anyway, got some cool footage of him. He walked off, and it was a really solid hunt because it was like, wow, first day in, and I'm already on a solid buck. Like a year or two ago, I would have killed for an opportunity at a buck like that the first day or like during the season, right? So pretty amped up about that. And then we actually did go out on our new lease that we picked up this year. We went out Sunday afternoon, and I got driven out by mosquitoes. It was friggin' ridiculous. I saw a deer, but it was ridiculous. Did you see any deer that afternoon?
No, I got completely skunked, and I think that this will go in the record as my slowest weekend of hunting ever. So
Wow.
you had saw deer everywhere you went, but
I got a knack for them. They like that head cam, dude.
yeah, I was wearing one.
Oh yeah, you were.
I was using mine to block my forehead from getting eaten by mosquitoes.
Yeah,
But no,
but
it was hot, just hot, sticky this weekend, especially Sunday night. I kind of forgot we even went out there, but yeah, we went to the lease up here, new for this year. We were hoping to put out a few more videos, but I have been running trail cameras all summer. I did some minerals 2 weekends ago now, if you count last weekend. I went out on Saturday and I think I moved 4 cameras to mock scrapes from the minerals. And I threw them. There was like those trophy rocks are still there, so I threw them in the creek. And we're not even gonna hunt by any of them. We only have 2 stands on that property so far. The closest one's probably 400 yards away from them. But took those cameras, moved them to mock scrapes. There were actually a couple of natural scrapes opened up already, which I was really excited to see because I've hunted some good areas in the past that I consider really good areas. And even into October, you can be hard pressed sometimes to find open scrapes. So when I saw that at the end of September, I was thinking, okay, this property definitely has some potential. As it's brand new property, definitely we were going into it. We didn't know where they wanted to spend the money, but we found some good sign when we were scouting it and decided to go through with it, at least try it for a year. But there's definitely that feeling where you're like, it's just a brand new property. I don't know what's going to be there. And so far, we've had, I think, one for sure shooter, maybe 2.
right.
There's a
And
couple of
I was gonna touch on that. I mean, I think we could mention, I mean, we don't have a ton of known shooters right now, right? But
right.
one of the properties we haven't checked the trail cameras in quite a while, and we know there's going to be some big ones on there.
They haven't checked it. We haven't even checked those once. There's only one.
Right. But so we haven't checked that camera, but we know there's going to be some big ones. Like you said, on that property, there's one for sure that's over 160 or just at 160. And then there's a couple like right under. And then we've got a couple other known shooters in other areas. I don't want to give away locations, but so I think we've got a handful of deer that we know of, probably like 3 or 4 at this point that we know of at most. Actually, we know like 2 or 3 that are confirmed alive. And then there's a couple other that we know of that we don't know or they haven't showed back up yet, which is odd.
It's
But
always the biggest ones too.
it's always the biggest ones that never show back up. And it drives us nuts every single year. And we know one of these bucks, if he shows actually two of these bucks, if they show back up, one of them is going to be like 180s and the other one's going to be at least 170. So hopefully they show back up. But anyway, yeah, it's kind of TBD. I like to keep everything incognito, but there's a couple good bucks. And yeah, so I guess my plan for this weekend is I'm not really going to be doing much hunting. If I do, it'll be around home. I don't know about you. What's your plans?
Yeah, we're gonna hunt around here. Staying in town this weekend. Probably gonna be fairly laid back, but I figure I might as well scout. There is one piece of public that I've never been to up here, and I kind of want to take some time to scout that this weekend. Can never have too many spots, so I might do that. But the weather is going to be absolutely terrible, so I don't have too high hopes. And then Jesse is actually going to be hunting this year. We gave her a bow this summer, and she's actually done really well. She's picked it up really well so far.
Yeah,
She's shooting really good. She can group 4 inches at 20 yards already.
it's good.
Seems like.
If people go back and watch the review of the $200 Amazon bow I think I made, I was going to give that away to a viewer, but I gave it to Jessie because she wanted to get into archery. So I figured that's the best. Instead of giving it to somebody who's probably just going to sell it online on the internet, online, we gave it to Jessie so then she could learn how to shoot. So
yeah, so that was pretty awesome. So she works the weekends, but I think we're going to take at least Saturday to go out at least once, maybe morning and night. That's to be determined, but we're going to try to get her first deer. The first year we started dating, she did late muzzleloader, and she also tagged along with me all bow season. She was quite the trooper. I drug her through some nasty public land. That season was a rodeo for me. It was the first year down in that new area, and we didn't have any shooters on the farm, so it was all public, and she was following me around. But she did good. Probably took it a little too hard that first year for her, and then that late season she got a tag for herself because she could use a muzzleloader. And we chased some deer around, but late season's pretty tough when you don't have any good food sources. So ultimately, she almost got a shot at a couple of does, but never did get to pull the trigger. Just didn't have a real solid layup opportunity for her. So I'm gonna go out this weekend and try to get her first deer and maybe do some scouting for myself. Trying to locate some more target bucks. So it should be a good weekend. Probably pretty laid back.
yeah, and I was just going to look at the weather. Heidi and I are actually doing early muzzleloader season this year. And that's one of the weeks that I've saved most of my vacation time for this fall for hunting. And one of the weeks I was planning on taking off was that said week of early muzz. And the forecast right now looks absolutely terrible. It's
not gonna lie.
It's bad. Like it's 70 degrees, calling for 70 degrees, not a front in sight.
How can there not be one good cold front up until the 21st of October? I keep hoping that they're wrong and they're going to change their mind.
They gotta be wrong. This is gonna go down as the worst October ever at this rate. The last couple of years, it's been amazing. Cold front after cold front after cold front.
Yeah,
But
they've got to be wrong. And if we get one,
even if it's warm, I'm not really too concerned because we got a couple good spots that we know that the bucks ultimately are going to get active eventually. And that's what you just got to keep telling yourself. Even though it's hot, just like last year, that really warm spell in November. Remember that? That drove me nuts that I canceled vacation for. Bucks still are going to move. And my biggest thing that I'm looking for right now is the minute that a cold front comes in and kicks it down even 10 degrees, it's going to be, you better get in the stand.
Well, yeah, this is a little different situation too. I mean, you have a week or 9 days, I think, for this early muzzleloader tag.
Right.
You got to hunt whenever you can, as much as you can. So,
Yep.
I mean, you got to be somewhere. You got to get out there. So it is what it is. And if we do get one, hopefully they are wrong. They don't. I see something up through the 21st, ends the 24th, or I think you get to hunt through the 24th.
Yep.
So there could still be one coming in after that. There has to be. We cannot go the whole month without one. Or if not, hopefully they're wrong. At least it's not 80.
The only
70 is
good thing
better
that
than
I'm
80.
the only good thing that I'm looking at right now is the lows are hitting 40s.
Yeah, so the mornings might be better, to be
So that might
honest.
help.
But
But
if they're, I mean, they're not just gonna go the whole October without moving at all in the daytime. So you got to get out there and try.
yeah.
But it might not be like last year when it was. I think we got frost and snow after I killed on the 18th with my early mouse tag.
So for guys listening, what are you keying in on right now? Like what are you when you go out this weekend, what are you looking for?
So we're having a really good mast year. I
When you say
expect
mass, you break that down for some people.
acorns is what I'm keying in on, especially right now. Or cut crops, recently cut crops, I should say, or greens. So I guess there's like it's just situational, but if you can get on like alfalfa or clover, that's going to be probably your best bet as far as traditional food sources go. Is like a good green source. I know my buddy Dylan almost got a shot at their big shooter this year. He's got, I guess I shouldn't say, but a really nice one that they're hunting this year. And he asked me, he's like, "Oh, you think I should go greens or grains?" And he was probably gonna go this anyway, so I'm not trying to take credit for it. But I'm like, I think I'd go greens because this past weekend we put out 3 cameras on the farm over on the alfalfa side of our farm. We got a nice big alfalfa field over there. We have 12 cameras out total, and we only added 3 more this week, and it was the ones I couldn't get to the weekend before. Just ran out of time, and those 3 doubled our pictures. So obviously, or more than doubled. So obviously, it wasn't proportional. There's way more deer keying in on that alfalfa, those good green sources right now, than there are anywhere else, and that's by far our best green source. So I told him I'd probably go to greens, and he had a great night. He saw a stud, probably 164-year-old, and then their big shooter, which I won't even talk about, but nice
Keep your
buck,
mouth shut, Hunter.
and almost got a shot at him. So hopefully he can pull that off. But that was over a green food source. Um, and then, like I said, mass producing trees, and especially when it's hot like this, I don't think they're going to be coming out in the open areas
If they
in
can help
daylight
it.
very often. Yeah, if they can help it when they've got so much food in these timber areas. So if you have acorns right now, that's what I'm going to be doing this weekend is just speed scouting, finding the trees that they're really keying in on
And
and looking for hot sign.
you can even probably find some of these bucks bedding in some of these. I mean, there could be an acorn tree dropping acorns and they could be laying in it and not move, right?
Oh yeah, especially right now, even the areas where you wouldn't consider it a bedding area because it's big open timber, there's still plenty of cover on right now because all the leaves are still on. They could be bedded anywhere. So you really just
Right.
have to start scouting. And I will say, if you get into hot sign, you probably should set up because there's not going to be a ton of it right now. So if you do find any, you're probably close. And I'd get the right wind and see if you can make it
Right.
happen.
So another tip, I guess, for people listening, I'll pose it as a question. What happens if you do bump it buck, right? I know me personally, it's situational. If I bump a buck, let's say on public, I'll take a note of it and I'll either come back or I'll hang out around there. But I think people are getting too gung ho about bumping bucks, to be perfectly honest. It's like on our private ground that we have, no matter if it's leased or owned, the goal is to never bump a buck. So what are your thoughts when you're scouting this weekend? Scout hunting, you should call it.
In a new area,
See, not in a new area. I guess in a new area, I know you're not going to care as much because you're going to take mental note.
Right.
I already know that. I'm saying on areas that you already kind of know.
Yeah. So on areas I already kind of know, I'm gonna have routes planned where I know I'm not gonna spook stuff. And kind of going back to what I just said, it's like once you hit that sign, you stop. You don't just blow through it. Because if you do, that's when you're gonna start bumping them. And
My
then
biggest
obviously the wind, you're accessing with the wind in your favor.
when I've had the best success finding, even if I'm like scouting new areas to hunt early season, I can think back multiple occasions right before I spook that buck. I'm telling myself, this sign is awesome. You need to stop. But in my head, I go, no, just keep seeing it. It's just over that rise. It's just over that
Hmm.
bend, right? Just behind that brush pile. And
Yeah.
then you go and you bump the buck. And it's like, you can go too far. Like you'll know once in your gut, you're like, okay, there's like 6 rubs, there's 3 scrapes, it's tore up. You'll know, like you'll know once you see it.
Yeah. And right now, there's just not a lot of sign in the woods. There could be areas with bucks that don't even look like they have any, was in my experience. Just kind of depends on the area. So if you do find that sign, you're in a good spot. And so that's when I'd stop. And you can definitely bump them without hitting that sign. So that's kind of, if it's an area that's kind of just a judgment call and based on experience. Um, I guess you just gotta do the best you can in that scenario.
Yeah, I would
You're
agree.
gonna bump, sometimes. I would be I would just say if it's an area you don't want to spook out, don't be that aggressive right
Don't get
now.
in there. Yep.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the same. Yep.
And like we said, I guess I made it seem like we were a little less aggressive. We actually did go to some good spots this weekend, but it wasn't spots that we thought we were going to spook any deer.
It wasn't really spots that we were going in, like we weren't going in a spot where it was like, yep, I'm killing a buck tonight.
Right.
It was almost just going in, okay, I'm observing, right? I seem to go into 90, like a majority of my hunts going, I'm observing, because from there, that next hunt could be the start of what we did last year. Like, okay, we see him coming out here. I'm gonna push in closer and kill him tomorrow night, right? So I think that's kind of been our our main tactics right now. But
Yeah, I want to set a goal for this season of doing more scouting because every single year I end up getting in the best hunting when I just take some time to scout. I think if you scout more than hunt, I know everyone's heard that, but it's super hard to stay disciplined on that. You just want to spend as much time actually hunting as possible because you think you're hunting your odds. But I think you can do both at the same time. But I want to make a goal of doing even more scouting this year, even just driving around. Seems to help me a lot to locate bucks and a booner typical.
that's what you're looking
So,
for. Do you
mhm.
have do you have any goals on the caliber buck you're hunting this year, or thought process or ideas of what
Well,
you're
it's got
looking
to
for?
be mature. Um, I want like a black stripe running down its back. And no, I'm just kidding.
What?
No. Uh, no, I don't know. It's gonna be based on what I can find.
Yeah, I'd agree. I
Because
mean, there's
right now we don't have anything that would go Boone and Crockett or anything like that. So it's just gonna be. I'm gonna be realistic. I'm not gonna set my goals on something that I can't find, but I'm also not gonna shoot a deer that's not mature that has potential to get bigger. So
right.
just finding that sweet spot, and then maybe late in the season, especially with my late. I'm gonna get a late muzzler tag, so that could be something where I just target a mature deer, even if he's not crazy big.
And it'll be interesting to see because there are a couple deer that we keep saying that we need to. Yeah, Gimp. We haven't seen Gimp. Maybe the world got a hold of Gimp.
Yeah, I that thing's ancient, and he had a bum leg. I don't know what happened there. Maybe he's dead.
Huh.
We got so many bucks that just didn't show back up, and I've been hearing that with a lot of people
I've been seeing more and more people posting they're out right now hunting and they're running into EHD kill or like dead bucks that have been like recent.
Oh, that's not good.
Every year
There were some
EHD, shoot
buzzards
them
up
when they're
by the
forks,
leaf.
baby.
Yeah. There were some buzzards circling on the lease. I forgot to tell you that.
Mm.
Kind of where we had that stand the first year.
They could be circling for anything,
Yeah, I know.
but all
I didn't
right.
go up there to check.
Well, I think that should be a wrap for the podcast. Everybody stay tuned. Hopefully this turned out all right. I feel like I'm going to say that all the time. Hopefully this turned out all right. But we'll give you guys kind of a thought process as things are going, what we're seeing, and hopefully you guys who are listening are going to have success too. So I think that's going to wrap it up here. If you guys are interested in, following along more than just a podcast, be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and the YouTube at Bronc Outdoors. So with that, we're going to sign off. And Hunter, thanks for jumping on the call.
Yep, my final words of wisdom is everyone stay out of the woods. Deer cast is bad. More for me.
Yeah, and hashtag forks only, baby.